Hey everybody, MS Farzan here, and in this video we're going to discuss how to write a research paper. Writing a research paper or a master's thesis or a doctoral dissertation might seem like a monumental task, and it can be a lot of work, but it doesn't have to be scary. I'm going to help you with some guidelines that will be your tools when you're writing your next research paper. The first thing to do when you're writing your research paper is to figure out your thesis statement. If you don't know what a thesis statement is or how to write one, check out my other video, which is unsurprisingly called How to Write a Thesis Statement, and then come back to me. I'll link it in the description below and also at the end of the video. When you have your thesis statement, take a step back, look at it, and really appreciate what it is you're about to do. You're going to write your entire research paper with that thesis statement as the backbone for your entire argument. Let's take the example from my thesis statement video about pipeweed farmers in Middle-earth, the setting for The Lord of the Rings. The thesis statement that we decided upon in that video was that Hobbit pipeweed farmers in the Shire are expanding public discourse about labor unions in the modern era. That's going to be the core thrust of our argument throughout the entire dissertation or master's thesis or research paper. Once I have that thesis statement, I'm going to build an outline. And the outline is going to consist of three main sections. The first one is an introduction, the second is content, and the third is conclusion. The intro and conclusion are the smallest parts, whereas the content is all of your chapters or pages or sections in between. And what I want you to do, painstaking though it may be, is to write one sentence for each section of your outline. So if you have an introduction and a conclusion and 5 sections in between, I want you to write one sentence for each of those sections describing what it is that you're going to discuss in that section. Your introduction is probably going to be delivering the thesis statement and providing some context for the research paper, and your conclusion is going to be something along the lines of summing up whatever it is that you talked about throughout the research paper, and perhaps a couple of other areas to consider for future research. Everything in between is up to you, but it has to tie back to the thesis statement in some way. So for example, with our Hobbit pipeweed farmers, perhaps the first section after the introduction has to do with pipeweed in general, setting the scene for what is pipeweed and what has the literature review for pipeweed shown us thus far. The second section could be about the historical time period that we're focusing on. Right now we're looking at the modern era in Middle-earth, so maybe discuss what do those parameters look like and what exactly are you defining as the modern era. The third section could look at the actors within this research topic that you've chosen, specifically the Shire Hobbit farmers and how they farm their pipeweed or what they do to distribute it or how they grow it. Whatever research comes up when you're discussing Shire pipeweed farmers. And the following section, your fourth section, could look at public discourse and labor unions. So you're really building up to this argument that you discussed in your thesis statement in the introduction that has to do with pipeweed farmers expanding public discourse about labor unions. So your fourth and fifth sections are going to be discussing in specific the labor unions and how the pipeweed farmers have expanded the public discourse about them. So write just one sentence for each of these sections, as well as your introduction and your conclusion. And as you work through this, you'll start to have an outline about the scope of your paper, about how it's going to flow, and how the different sections are going to interact with one another. Now, there are some people who will tell you that you should write the introduction after you've written the entire paper. I don't really buy that. I think your introduction is going to set the tone for your entire paper, and more importantly, encourage you to do the preliminary research to know what you're going to say throughout the paper. So once you have a really strong outline, go ahead and start unpacking that outline section by section, starting with your introduction. Do your literature review and draw in the reader by using your introduction to provide context and flavor to the story that you're about to tell. When you're done writing that introduction, which should include your thesis statement somewhere, start on your first section. Delve into that first parameter of your thesis statement, whether it's time or location or talking about the Shire farmers themselves, and make sure to tie it back to that thesis statement so that the reader can follow your train of thought and is thinking, oh, cool, I understand where this argument is going and I see how this section feeds back into the original argument. Do that for each one of your sections, and when you get to the conclusion, Just sum it all up and provide a couple of questions that can be considered for future research. One more thing, and this is a really small tactic that's going to help with the flow and the overall argument within your research paper. Think about your topic sentences. Whenever you write a paragraph about anything, anywhere within your research paper, literally anywhere, make sure that you have a strong topic sentence for that paragraph, which sums up what you're going to talk about in that paragraph. Meaning, if you start a paragraph describing a group of pipeweed farmers, don't start talking about some other group of pipeweed farmers or a completely different location than what you promised within that topic sentence. Write a concise topic sentence at the beginning of that paragraph that explains to the reader what they're going to learn within that sentence. And at the very end of that paragraph, use a word or a turn of phrase that you refer to in the next topic sentence. So if I use the word hobbits at the end of my paragraph, in the next paragraph, in the topic sentence for the next paragraph, I'm going to use the word hobbits again. That encourages this cognitive process in the reader where they're able to follow along with your argument simply because you've got a topic sentence at the beginning of the paragraph. They're able to read through the paragraph referring back to that topic sentence, and then the last word of that paragraph links to the topic sentence of the next paragraph. You begin this process with the first sentence of your introduction, and you complete it with the last sentence of your conclusion. What you have now is a research paper or a master's thesis or a doctoral dissertation that has a really strong thesis statement that explains the core of your argument and has a really clear outline with an intro, a conclusion, and sections in between that all refer back to that original thesis statement. And it has wonderful flow, incorporating topic sentences that bring the reader along section by section and paragraph by paragraph, all the way from the introduction to the conclusion. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and follow me on Twitter for more crunchy content.